It's an emergency. The garden is alive after open heart surgery. We're in our prime, making all the right moves. Taking our time, getting all the right tunes. We got OG, yeah, he's locking down the D, blocking the lane, and then he takes away the three. You can't block with bridges at the top. No two-piece combo, they call it wing stop. It's the full court, Josh Hart, yeah, going coast to coast, tear the defense apart. It's the Knicks, and we're running it back. Let's go, we got Shamit, Mitchell, Deuce, and Cat. Can't forget about JB, the lefty, the new king of New York, our MVP. Yeah, when Mr. Clutch goes penetrating, he puts up the floater, got the whole garden shaking, saying, go, New York! Go, New York, go!
Hello, world. What's that I see? The blue and orange playing a little beat, a little grit, little tenacity. Hang on tight, Van Gundy. Now he's got the size. And finally in New York, we play with a stretch five. He'll take it down low, knock it down outside, and catch a lob up top from Mr. McBride. No quit and no surrender. About time we real contenders. Yeah. Last up is our final member. JB coming through, putting you in a blender. Turn New York into believers. Ain't had a captain like this in town since Jeter. Yeah. Dude's cold-hearted, smooth, money. You can call him Jalen, but I prefer Brunny. Stand a chance. When OG's on the case, putting you in clamps. Playoff bound, yeah, we ready to dance. Don't look now, we coming for the champs.
Robinson's stopping them like FedEx. He's boxing them, crashing the glass, touch pass, another chance. We're on the rise, the stars are aligned. One city, one vibe. Now is the time, saying go New York, go New York, go! Let's go, Knicks.
Let's go, Knicks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an unbelievable special Larry Frank Sports Unfiltered. We're coming to you live WWBG 1470 AM. As I turn this off, I guess that would have been smart. Alrighty, there I go. And coming to you at WWBG 1470 AM. We're coming to you on Tobacco Road Sports Radio as well as the YouTube channel, NGSC Sports, and of course all Frankly Speaking sports platforms. And I'll tell you what, folks, it's been since 1973. I was 7 years old the last time the Knicks won the NBA championship. Grew up in Long Island, right in Smithtown and Comac, New York. Actually not far from where our guest grew up as well. And I'll tell you what, it's been probably since 2012 that a major sports team from New York, that's excluding the Liberty, who won the championship in 2024, has won a championship. And that was the New York Giants, who upset the New England Patriots back in 2012. And I know a guy who watched that game. I know a guy who was there. And I'll tell you what, we are so proud to have him here tonight. Please, let's welcome in New York Post columnist, been there since 2002. That's right, almost a quarter of a decade next year it'll be. Let's welcome in Mike Vaccaro. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, Larry. How are you today?
Mike, I'm doing good. I have to ask you this, Mike. I mean, being a New Yorker, like I am, I can only imagine if I was there right now what the buzz is like in the Big Apple, knowing that the New York Knicks now are going to possibly be the first championship major sports team since 2012. What it's like over there?
Yeah, it's pretty electric. I mean, look, it's been a long time between drinks and waters for people around here since the Giants, like we talked about. And look, I think people are a little concerned about jinxing it by thinking too much about it. They want us to kind of just let it happen and enjoy it. But man, look, this is a city. This is a basketball city. The Knicks have really captured the imagination around here, and they hope it lasts as long as it can.
And let me ask you this, Mike. It was last year, I believe it was, Coach T, Tom Thibodeau, was fired. And now the Knicks have to make a choice on who the next head coach is going to be. So they went ahead with a guy who has a 507 and 333 record. In simple terms, that's a 60% winning percentage. He's a two-time NBA Coach of the Year. He was the NBA All-Star coach, I believe, 1 year as well, and a four-time champion NBA championship assistant coach. Every way he went, he won. He won with the Cleveland, had a 305 and 167 record, with the Kings 107 and 88, and with the Lakers a 42 and 29 record. In the playoffs, 54 and 42. Yet, when he was hired, there was a lot of skepticism. A lot of analysts did not believe this was the right choice. What was it about Mike Brown that made people believe he wouldn't be the right guy to coach this team?
Well, Larry, I'm not sure it was Mike Brown people were skeptical about. I think a lot of them, whatever skepticism was whether they should have fired Thibodeau or not. Yeah, look, I mean, if everybody else had skepticism, so did the Knicks, because Brown wasn't his first choice, or their fourth choice, or fifth choice. I mean, he was kind of down the line. But you know what? That part of the narrative doesn't matter, because Brown has taken the job. He's taken it to a different level. He's raised the Knicks' ceiling clearly, because he was in the finals. And as great a job as Thibodeau did, he never got from here. So, I mean, I guess you don't want to necessarily know, how the pizza is made. You just want to taste the pizza. And that's kind of where the Knicks are right now. And look, I mean, it doesn't mean, I'm sure Mike Brown doesn't care that he was their fifth or sixth choice, because as it turns out, he was the right choice, and that's what matters.
Yeah, and definitely. And what have you noticed that is the main difference between the two coaches, if anything, and what is it about Mike Brown that you feel has led them to the finals?
Well, Brown is definitely more collaborative than Tibbs was. I mean, Tibbs was kind of a guy who wanted control, of the way things work, just about everything with the operation. I mean, he would listen to his coaches for advice, but certainly Brown leans on them more. And look, I mean, collaboration was a big key word last year. When they decided to make a switch, that was a word they used a lot. And, Brown has really embraced that. And it's not just with his assistants, but look, I mean, I think he empowers the players too in terms of giving them a voice. From the very beginning, he said that, the adjustments around here weren't just, them having to adjust to him, but him having to adjust to them as well.
Talk about this incredible, probably the best playoff run in NBA history, at least that I remember. 11 straight wins now, 2 sweeps in a row. I think they're outscoring their opponents in the playoffs by, I think, over 200 points. What has been the most amazing thing that has stuck out to you during this run?
Well, just the way they've elevated their play on both ends of the floor. Look, defensively, they're swarming, making a lot of turnovers against the Cavaliers. I mean, that led to just a bucket after bucket of easy scores. Offensively, they're clicking. Look, I mean, it takes different forms. In the series against the Sixers, Cat became just this marvel out of the high post, passing and looking for other players. Against the Cavaliers, it was more of a Landry Shamet coming off the bench and making every shot, and Mikal Bridges, so that he can't miss a shot. What's great about this team is that every game, it seems like there's a different player you can attach that game to. So there's a Deuce McBride game. There's a Landry Shamet game. Of course, there's a couple of Cat games and a couple of Jalen Brunson games. So that's what a good team is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I was going to just talk about that, and it is a different player, like you said. Now, don't get me wrong, Jalen Brunson gets a lot of the credit, and he deserves it, don't get me wrong. But like you said, there's a lot of different players that step up when other players may not really be on. But the one thing I noticed about this team, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is let's say Brunson's off a little bit or Cat's off a little bit. They change their game around and they do other things besides the scoring that helps the team and other players come to the spotlight.
Yeah, and they're very unselfish. I mean, it starts at the top with Brunson, who is so reluctant to talk about himself and loves to talk about all of his teammates, every one of his teammates. You'll recall when they won the NBA Cup in December, and he won the MVP, of course. He immediately just wanted to talk about Tyler Kolek, his backup, and talk about Mitch Robinson, who had a great game that day. And that's just the kind of guy he is as a captain, and it's why his teammates revere him, and it's why that he's such an effective leader on this team.
Mike, we saw in the talking about it. They had a long layoff. They came out rusty in the first half of game one, and then, the rest of the story is history. But what type of things? I mean, they obviously know they came out rusty. You don't have to tell this team they can't do that again in this series. But what are some of the things that they can do to ensure that they don't come out with a lag in this series?
Well, I mean, I think that experience probably is one of the things. Not a lot of teams learn how to ramp it back up again after an 8 or 9 game layoff, and now the Knicks are going to do it twice. I think part of that game one, yes, they were flat. They weren't very good for 3.5 quarters. Cavaliers had a pretty good stretch during the second half of that game, so you have to credit them for that a little bit. But look, I mean, I think that the benefits far outweigh the problems. I mean, that first layoff allowed OG Anunoby to get back up to speed. Maybe this one will allow Mitch Robinson to be part of the things. And you know what? I wouldn't shortchange the fact that first game back the last series was at home. I'm not saying that they're in a house money situation now, but they can afford to lose game one in this series if it's a rust situation or whatever it is, and still find themselves because it's only losing a road game. So I think that's a little different. I just don't think they're going to be flat. They might not win game one, and they might not win this series, but it's not going to be because they're not ready for it, and it's not going to be because they're flat or rusty. I think they'll be fine. The Spurs are a tough team, though, so they have to be at their best in order to beat the best.
You mentioned Mitch Robinson and the injury with the pinky. How much do you think? I mean, I would assume he wouldn't be playing, or they wouldn't let him play if it was going to affect the team in a negative way. And both you and I know, not trying to be sarcastic, but it's definitely not going to affect his free throw shooting because he hasn't been doing well there to begin with. Right. But how much can this impact the Knicks?
Well, look, I mean, I've broken my finger before, Larry. Maybe you have also. It's a lot of it is a pain threshold thing, and I don't begrudge anybody who has a low one. I certainly envy those who have a high one. But look, when you have a broken finger, and yes, of course, his free throws aren't going to go much farther down because they can't. But just think about what it is to dunk down an alley-oop in traffic, and what that does to your finger. Think about trying to grab a rebound in traffic, or block a shot with your right hand. So these are all things that are going to probably affect him in an adverse way, you would think. But look, Mitch is also an unselfish enough guy where I think if he thought it would be detrimental to the program, he wouldn't put himself in that position. I think Mike Brown has done a good job to make sure that he can minimize the hack and Mitch stuff. So I think he's really going to do that now, assuming he's able to play here and there. And I think what you really need from Mitch is the ability to just put a body on Wembanyama. You hope in the best case scenario for the Knicks that Cat doesn't replay what he did against the Sixers, where he was always in foul trouble. You can't have game after game where he's getting 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game. That's not going to work. He's got to stay on the floor, not only because he's one of the best players, but because you want to be able to pick and choose when you're going to use Mitch.
Let me ask you this. In this series, and like you said, I would think at minimum you would want at least a split in San Antonio, come back to the Garden with it at minimum tied up 1-1. But how do you think the Knicks overall, I mean, we know what happened during the season. I guess overall, including the Cup, they were 2-1 versus this team. They played pretty darn well versus the Spurs. How do you think at this point, going into this finals, the Knicks match up with the Spurs?
Look, I think they match up tremendously well. I mean, that was borne out by the results of the season. I mean, the NBA Cup was in December. That was a long time ago, but both teams were finding themselves. Wemby was coming off an injury. They weren't going away, the Knicks did. Their win in the March in the Garden was really impressive. I think that was the largest margin of defeat the Spurs had across the last half of the season. And the Knicks played great. I mean, there's almost a hint of what we've seen the last couple of weeks. You know, and even the game they lost at San Antonio on New Year's Eve, I mean, look, they played great in the first half. They went up 19. They were still up, I think, 7 or 8 with about 6 minutes to go in the game. And Julian Champagny had 11 threes. So, you know, if he's going to hit 11 threes every game, they're going to be in trouble. But you have to remember, the Knicks didn't have Josh Hart that night. They didn't have Mitch that night. They didn't have Landry Shamet that night. All three of those guys have been very important ingredients to what the Knicks have done the last 11 games.
You know, you talked about Victor Wembanyama. I think I say that right. I always have trouble saying that name. You know, one thing I noticed about him, and I want to get your opinion on this, it seems like he doesn't play as well against physical type defenders as he does versus just, you know, an ordinary defender, which the Knicks do have with Cat and Mitch, some physical guys. And my question to you is, are we better off as a Knicks team allowing him the opportunity to shoot threes so he stays away from the rims and doesn't get as many rebounds, or do you feel it's the other way around?
Yeah, I think you want to push him out from the basket. I don't think you want to just give him those threes. I mean, the Knicks aren't going to guard him the way the Spurs are certainly going to guard Josh Hart when everybody else guards Josh Hart, and just daring him to shoot and hoping that doesn't backfire on them. But look, I mean, that's part of, you know, it's really the most important Knick in this series, and he's been the most important Knick, regardless of what the statistics say, even more than Jalen Brunson is OG, because OG is going to spend some time guarding Wembanyama. He's given away, you know, 5, 6, 7 inches, but he's guarded centers before. He's guarded Wemby before. That's exactly the kind of challenge he loves to accept. And it's not that you're going to stop him, but you just want to make it hard. The thing with Wembanyama, we saw it in the last series. We've seen it, you know, all season long. He was playing 32, 35 minutes a game. They wanted to kind of save his pitch count. And, you know, he gets tired. Now, sometimes, you know, in game one against that didn't come out. He played a million minutes and he had that great 42 and 21 game or whatever it was. But you want to tire him out as much as you can. And you want to put bodies on him. And you want it to be by the fourth quarter. You know, maybe he's a step slower than he was in the first three. That's the blueprint anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's always one guy, it seems like, in every championship, it don't matter what sport, that surprises everybody. They come out from nowhere. Not that they weren't good throughout the year, but it's somebody not like a Brunson, not like a Downs, you know, or not like a Wembanyama. I mean, who on the Knicks do you think can be that guy? You mentioned OG, I know that, but is there somebody that we're not thinking of that could be the spark? And it might be because Robinson might not play as much. Could it be McBride coming off the bench? Who is that guy, in your opinion, it can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think any of the guys that the Knicks have coming off the bench have shown themselves capable of winning games and, you know, shouldering loads when they needed to. And McBride, we saw McBride game 4 against the Sixers. We saw Landry Shamet in all the games against the Cavaliers. I guess we haven't had a signature moment for Jordan Clarkson or Jose Alvarado yet, so maybe that's in play. But look, I mean, to me, I think the real bellwether for the Knicks is, you know, first couple minutes of the game is Mikal Bridges still automatic. Because when he's on offense, I mean, you know he's going to give you an A level on defense. When he's giving them on offense, he's been a bonus the entire postseason ever since he kind of woke up against the Hawks. And Mike Brown decided to give him a vote of confidence, and it's paid off. I think, you know, in that way, it might be how Mikal goes to go to the Knicks, in the sense of if he's feeling good about himself early in a couple shots, you know, he might be able to start establishing something early against the Spurs.
All right, a couple more questions, Mike. We'll let you run. I mean, let's switch over to the Spurs a quick second. Everybody knows about Wembanyama. Who is the one guy besides him that scares you the most on this Spurs team?
Well, Castle is fantastic. I mean, look, he's a guy who's a winner. I mean, he won championships at UConn. So he's kind of very Brunson in that regard, because Brunson won two at Villanova. I love Dylan Harper. I mean, I'm not the first person to put it this way, but this is the worst version of Dylan Harper we're ever going to see at age 20. It's amazing to think about over the next 10, 12, 15 years. And right now, he's an important part of what they do. I mean, he's fearless. He loves the moment. He loves games like this. He's from around here, so he's not going to have any fear of New York. In fact, he's probably going to relish the opportunity to play at the Garden. So all those things, I think, look, the Spurs are a good team. I do think they're the better matchup for the Knicks, but the fact of the matter is they're a lot healthier. Then looks, Aaron Fox struggled with his ankle, but he looks to be coming around again. So that's a real X factor. Somebody is maybe going to give Brunson some problems. So I mean, that's a good team. I think the Thunder might have been, if they were going to be hurt coming into the series, maybe that was going to give the Knicks an advantage. But I still just think the Thunder have so many weapons that can come at you. I think the Spurs are the team that's manageable for the Knicks right now. Not saying they're going to win the series, but I think they match up really well against each other.
Mike, for those people that have never been to Madison Square Garden, give them a pre-notion of what it's going to be like Game 3 at Madison Square Garden with the fans.
Well, bring your earplugs, because when you sit in the main bowl of Madison Square Garden and you're not protected, you're not going to appear very well for 2-3 days after the game. It's that loud. I mean, it's the loudest building we have in New York. Old Yankee Stadium used to be close. Old Shea Stadium used to be close. Of course, those places held 30,000 more fans, but an open air stadium, so it wasn't the same. When the Garden is on, and I'm talking about when the Garden is on for a Knicks playoff game, for a Rangers playoff game, for a big concert, I mean, it's the loudest building that I've ever been in. And now you're adding the element of now the Knicks are 4 wins away from winning a championship. It's going to be beyond belief. So the atmosphere in the Garden is going to be something that's going to be second to none. And look, I expect that the Spurs Arena, the first 2 games is going to be crazy also.
Yeah. And how wonderful has it been? I mean, I've enjoyed it on TV, seeing all the former New York Knicks players, the Ewings, the Starks, and all them showing up and rooting this team on.
Yeah, and good for the Knicks for including them. I mean, look, I think it was Larry Johnson who said he's never been back to a Hornets game since he retired. I mean, that's just certain franchisers take care of their alumni more than others. The Knicks coined the once a Knick, always a Knick a few years ago, and they've really been serious about involving them. Look, and it's like they're sent off in waves now. I mean, you have some who play who come to the games. You have some in dispatch when they're on the road. Radio City Music Hall, wherever they're having crowd gatherings, and they're more than happy to take part in doing whatever they have to do to do it. So it's been a lot of fun to watch. I mean, guys like Sprewell and Starks, and of course, like I said, Ewing. I mean, Klein is obviously the guy that the place goes nuts whenever they show him. I would assume if Phil Bradley shows up. I would love for Earl Monroe's health to be better, so maybe he can make an appearance, but we don't know about that one. But certainly, Clyde and Dollar Bill should probably make an appearance Game 3, Game 4, and that's going to be something special.
All right, Mike, my last question. And I'm not going to ask you, because I know a lot of people would ask you, what's your prediction on this series as far as who wins, who loses? Hey, you cover the Knicks, okay? We know who you want to win. My question is a little different. How many games do you think this series will go?
I think it's going to be a long series, and I think that pretty much ends. I think the Knicks will win. It's probably going to be in 6. If the Spurs are going to win, it's probably going to be in 7. Let's say the Spurs couldn't win Game 6 in the Garden, couldn't win a Game 7 in San Antonio, but I just think that's it's going to be a long series. I mean, I think both teams will win a game on the other team's floor, and I think it'll be a matter of what happens. Once you do that, you get to Game 5, and who wins the best of 3.
All right, Mike. Well, listen, I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on tonight. I know you got a tough week ahead of you. Wednesday night, the series starts in San Antonio, and we really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on Larry Frank Sports Unfiltered.
Larry, it's really good to visit with you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Go Knicks. All right. That was Mike Vaccaro from the New York Post. We were so happy, so honored to have him on. And I want to let you folks all know, I mean, this is going to be one heck of a series. I believe, I thought it might go 7. I said 6 or 7, so I agree with Mike. And for all you fans that have tuned in, I hope you enjoyed this terrific interview from what I believe is a Hall of Fame sports columnist. He's won over 50 awards for writing. Just incredible. He has 3 or 4 books out now. So we want to thank him very much for joining us on Larry Frank Sports Unfiltered. For all you fans, remember to subscribe, like our show, subscribe to YouTube, share it for us. We do appreciate you. And once again, the NBA Finals start Wednesday night in San Antonio. Thank you for joining us. I'm Larry Frank from Larry Frank Sports